Hello.
We are here, live, coming at you.
Good evening, all. Welcome to Equilibrium Collective. My name's Laura Jane, and this is Terry.
Hello.
We have a special guest tonight. His name is Harry Rose. He's a British photographer. Also does a lot of. He's done 2 years work in finding out about Bigfoot. We're going to join him in now. Where is he? Oh,
Here he comes. He was here. We were just talking to him. He's run away.
Always happens. Technical glitch.
Hello.
There he is.
Oh, hello.
You did cut out.
Welcome to Equilibrium Collective, Harry.
Hello.
Well, we'll start off by, should we say, look, talk a bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a photographer working in the UK. Currently, and kind of my main focus at the moment has been working on climate change projects and queer identity in the LGBTQI plus community, and previously Bigfoot. So
Yes.
I've moved, I've dramatically moved on to what I'm interested in photographing and doing. But graduated in 2014, set up various different agencies and run quite big photography campaigns for people. And yeah, lots of photography and creative things, basically. But a big interest in cryptozoology and things that go bump in the night.
What led you to look towards the Bigfoot specifically?
Well, are you aware of the TV show Harry and the Hendersons?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
So I was absolutely terrified of Harry Henderson as a kid, and I remember when we went to Universal Studios when I was about 5 and met him there, and was just scarred for the rest of my life. Essentially, I was absolutely terrified. And then
when you see really hairy people.
But I was scared of ET. I was scared of a lot of stuff as a kid.
Okay.
And then as I kind of got older, I remember the TV show X-Files being on. It was broadcast on BBC Two, I think about 8 o'clock, and it was on after a show called Airline. And I remember the show Airline, the theme tune from it used to terrify me because I knew that the scary show was coming on after me. When I was a little bit
You really need to learn to turn the telly off.
Yeah, well, I can't get that. No, nothing really scares me now, apart from 24 Hours on A&E, because I can't watch anything blood related that's real. And then when I discovered X-Files probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I was kind of like a late comer to it, and I just became obsessed with it because I thought it was so kitschy and funny and silly, and I just loved the dynamic. And I kind of got more, and what my family, my mum was quite into. She was subscribed to the Tea Times for a while and used to watch like Most Haunted a lot and ghost hunting programs, because I saw a lot of it was treated as popcorn entertainment.
Yeah.
And I kind of just lapped it up a bit, and I thought it's fun to kind of believe in something that's may or may not be real, to escape from reality. And I think a lot of it some people kind of read Shakespeare or got loads of books on their list, or they play computer games or do something else. But some people just like obsess over things that may or may not exist. So I kind of came to it that way, and then I was thinking it would be really interesting to do something with photography and something on paranormal kind of activity and things and strange cryptozoology thing. And the original plan was to essentially create like a British X-Files photography series of loads of different things. But I think the first, I thought I'd do Bigfoot because it was actually, I think Bigfoot's the most accessible. I think it's kind of like your starter drug, and then you go on to more heavier substances once after. He's kind of like the, I don't know, he's kind of like the marijuana of the
The cryptozoic
world. So I was watching. Yeah, I watched a lot of stuff on Bigfoot, and I found it really interesting. I got a friend called Patrick, who sadly his cat died today.
Aw.
And he, I met him. Actually, I met him after I did the project. But Patrick's like, listens to so many podcasts, and he actually sent me one like not too long ago, which is probably the most kind of like believable one that I've heard encounter in America. And I just find it very interesting, and the fact that Bigfoot is part of every single culture has a wild man, a Sasquatch, a man of the forest. Everyone has it, and it's fascinating that it's been around. Bigfoot's been around since kind of like sat around the campfire telling stories.
Absolutely.
And my kind of belief is that it was always used something to warn off. It's always as a bad spirit, something not to be messed with. And a lot of me thinks a time that it kind of was the reason it kind of exists in contemporary culture is it's back when there was bears and wolves in the woods and a bigger population of animals that could kill you if you left your village late at night, and it was a convenient way of making sure the kids didn't bugger off into the woods and by wolves or taken off by someone passing through the village who might not have good intentions towards kids. I mean, they kind of just remind me of, the more I look into Bigfoot as a historical thing, it reminds me of like Grimm's fairy tale novels, like more contemporary. It just kind of cleverly slots into a cultural kind of like boogeyman of the forest. And I mean, Harry Hendelson is the only kind of nice Bigfoot pop culture thing we have. Any other kind of movie, they want to kill you and eat you or attack you.
Yes.
The
Wendigo kind of
thing.
He's love. I love him now. I think he's absolutely adorable. But
wouldn't want to meet him on a dark night.
Yeah.
I'm not going to buy you a teddy bear for Christmas. It's fine.
Exactly. So I kind of just came to it that way, and I kind of started off by going into lots of groups on Facebook and messaging people and kind of just having really candid conversations and doing a little bit of Louis Theroux, where you kind of just ask a dumb question that's not actually dumb. It's constructed in a way to get the answer you want, and the person there's more than they intend to. And then when you pick them up on it, they're like, "Oh my god, no!" and they backtrack. So there's quite a lot of that going on. And I mentioned it earlier to you, but everyone that and this is for UK, I've had a few conversations with people from America, but because I couldn't get over there, I kind of felt it was more to my ability to kind of focus on the UK kind of belief. And every kind of prominent figure in the community who everyone kind of said this person had an experience. It happened to them when they were young. So we're talking kind of like 3 up to like 10 kind of age. And when I probed a bit deeper, a lot of them tend to have abusive, traumatic childhoods and sort of don't have contact with family members, and kind of so they dropped out of school or don't have a kind of like a day job or a real profession or sort of an academic interest. And it was interesting that the more people I spoke to who were kind of held up as figureheads and the real kind of deal, the more you spoke to them, the more the stories matched and the circumstances matched. And I found that really interesting because I think what's more fascinating behind Bigfoot is the people who believe in it. So I wanted to go down this route of photographing them and doing a kind of portrait series of believers and why they believe, and dig into into their past and where they live, and kind of like their culture and what they're like, and just kind of flesh them out as human beings, so they're not just this whack job who's next door who stays up late at night watching weird things on telly, and that trying to get a bit of humanity to them. And then it very quickly became apparent that nobody really wanted their names out there. And then it also became quickly apparent that all these Facebook groups are closed groups and they're not open.
Right.
So, I mean, in some groups you kind of get accepted straight away, and then some take a little bit longer. You'll get a message saying what are your intentions and all this, and then I did a bit more digging, and there's people who were doctors, NHS staff, people who work in there's a few teachers. Excuse me. So naturally, if they kind of got wind that they're huge Bigfoot believers and fanatics, then their kind of professional lives would be brought into question. So sadly wasn't the ability to involve them. So it was like, right, what do I do? How do I photograph something that on likelihood in the UK doesn't exist? Just due to size of the creature and how big the UK is and how relatively apart. I mean, I'm in the Scottish Highlands at the moment, and I can tell you, apart from a few pocketed towns, it's not that densely populated. But still, there's enough kind of people to to say, oh, there's things real. It's up here. But so I kind of went down the route of, okay, let's go to locations where people have had experiences. And I found to be quite a fair few were pointing me toward Mid and North Wales. And I knew North Wales quite well. Been going there since I was a baby, and I kind of knew the land pretty well. So I kind of felt that if I went there, and there was two campers who went missing in 1988, and it's still regarded as unsolved and mysterious. And there's not that much information you can find online. I found some information at the local library and the newspapers, but it's not
about them going missing.
Yeah, it's not a big UK public story. So I thought, okay, and I went, and interesting enough, there's a lot of disused mines and quarries there, which no one can even get down anymore. So my feeling is that there was a stumble and a fall. But I thought I'd investigate this area. So I spent 3 weeks out on my own. Didn't have a car. I literally walked everywhere. So it was like 12, 14-hour kind of like days, like walking.
Wow.
That's dedication.
Yeah, with my with a film camera as well, because I thought with long, even though you can is a big thing. So even though you can kind of you can still Photoshop film images. But my mindset was like, if I got the original negatives, if something does happen,
yeah.
And the community that I was sort of talking to, when I told them I was doing this, I now understand that from their perspective, they thought I was kind of going to come in and give them the holy grail they were looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a task.
You are the one, the chosen one.
And then as I came back empty-handed, and I photographed evidence of Bigfoot, which tends to be sort of your logs crossing like that, your sticks as marker signs, and snapped saplings, and bits of like branches that have fallen potentially into another tree that are high up that make it look like they've been placed there high up, a big arm going up. There was a lot of those were kind of, and then the kind when you go through the woods, you see that families and kids have made their little dens. They stack them all up in little pyramids, or rest them against a tree and make a flat one. Those are all kind of like meant to be Bigfoot like evidence. But then if you go into any woodland, even if it's a local park and there's a hustle of 10, 20 trees there, you're going to find
some twigs together, and that's what you're going to get.
Yeah, you're gonna see it, and it's kind of like you could just say, oh, there must be 20 or 30 Bigfoot in this woods. You could say there's Bigfoots in Hampstead Heath. If you were to follow all of those, if you were to follow the rules and follow what the evidence,
their logic,
follow the logic, it doesn't add up. So I kind of went and photographed what I could, and then
any evidence of.
Oh no, I had one experience that I still to this day cannot explain, which was when I was had my camera on me and I was taking a picture of essentially a tree that looked like it had been it was pretty fresh, so it looked like either lightning had struck it, but there were no kind of burnt marks. You know, when you kind of get a twig and you snap it, and it's kind of like a sapling, and the wood kind of twists.
Yes.
It's kind of soft.
Yeah.
It's soft. It was that, but it was a whole tree. It looked like something had kind of like got his arm around something and molded the tree, and it looked strange. I was like, and because I was thinking of Bigfoot for 3 weeks, I didn't have any communication with anybody else. It was just me in the caravan listening to the radio with my tin of beans, reading Bigfoot books. So it was a bit kind of like, it was a bit strange. In my head, I was talking to myself a lot after even just like 2 days. And I
make yourself a tin hat. That's the important thing.
Yeah, it didn't get that bad. I was on this walk and I was kind of photographing this thing, being like, can't fully explain this right now. Maybe because my brain is so like sponged up on crazy stuff that I can't rationalize what it is that I'm actually looking at. And then behind me, I heard a massive thud, and I was like, okay. And I instantly kind of like froze because I kind of thought, this is it. It's happening. Coming from behind me, and I heard a big kind of like grunting, like that, and I was like, oh, okay, this might weirdly turn out to be kind of like the non-believer kind of wanting to prove it's real but doesn't fully believe, kind of becoming this is my awakening into the Christianity of Bigfoot. Essentially, it's the calling. So, and then what happened was, I heard that noise. I didn't move. I didn't look, but I heard something moving, and then I heard a crashing. And so I was on a path, and it was winding up the mountain, and it was in a forest, and there was lots of deforestation going on there. But this was a Sunday, and there was no evidence of anyone about. This log, basically, it wasn't freshly cut. It was literally just like a mashed up tree with its roots still on it, came up and over like another tree and smashed alongside me and rolled. And I moved. I got out the way, but and then I essentially didn't hang around. I was stood there with my camera and was like, right, I should really turn around and snap and see, but I sadly ran because I wasn't.
I think I would.
Throwing trees at you, you run.
Yeah. And the thing is, it could have been. There's lots of deer in that area. I've seen lots of deer there before, so it could have easily been a male or a female deer grunt that they were kind of like walking through the woodland, and because I was standing dead still, being quiet, taking a picture. It could have just sniffed. The wind could have changed and it smelt me, and it could have been like, whoa, what's that deer kind of like animal? There's a predator down there. and then it could have run and moved, and a tree that had already fallen could have got dislodged and just and come down. That I mean, that is more than likely what happened. But it was enough for me to kind of just to run up the side of the mountain, and I had my sandwich and can of Coke, and just tried to calm down. And I did walk back down there, and then whatever was down there had moved on. It was gone.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the only thing that happened, and it was really, really strange, and it was really scary and really odd, because when you're on your own for such a sustained period of time, and you kind of think that, oh my god, I'm having that encounter, but then when I kind of got away, I kind of realized probably not. When I had time to calm down and be a bit more rational, and that's what kind of makes me. The more I hear of Bigfoot sightings and people who have them in their later life, they tend to be from people who I'm very rare, apart from one or two I've heard and read on, experiences from people who don't believe already. There's a lot of people who go looking for it, and people who kind of want to believe it's there. So they go out and have experience, and it could be any other type of animal, but to them, they choose to believe it. So, and then I kind of, I made some photographs based on, there was lots of archival images of, I found lots of landscape images, archival images of where people had sightings, and I kind of drew on them to pointing the route the creature would have had made across the landscape, to give you an idea of if that was real, what it would have to kind of navigate. And the more you kind of looked at it, the more you went, no, not real. So there's a mixture of kind of like archival images. And the weirdest thing that kind of turned up was I got a post parcel through the door, and it was really heavy. And then when I opened it up, it was 2 Bigfoot casts.
Oh wow!
That had arrived, which I then photographed, and like you know, when you see like history books, and it's all black background, and the pot is perfectly lit. It was like a museum, so I photographed them as if it was evidence in a museum kind of piece, to make you think that it was legitimately real. And that kind of arrived, and that kind of was happening around the time that I was telling people that I didn't find anything, and I put my address on my comments so people could send me any material they had for me to photograph. So that kind of led me down the route of, because I've not found anything, are people trying to fill the project with something? Are they trying to keep it alive?
Yeah. The casts that you got were just casts. There was no telling you where they came from. Nothing. Just so they could have been anything, couldn't it?
They could be legitimate, which makes you think, if they were legitimate, A, why would you send them in the post, and B, why would you not put a message and contact the person?
Absolutely.
If they were original, surely they'd be like your most prized possession. So it was really strange and odd. And then the series kind of had a few more pictures, and then it kind of got very, very ugly, with the owner of, I probably shouldn't disclaim names here,
Bob,
but it's a female. So
Jane Doe.
That narrows it down a little bit who it could be. And they essentially got very aggressive, and I was giving a few talks in London about the project completely from a photographic perspective, and from a creative perspective on what I kind of learned. And that's all I kind of ever positioned myself as. I didn't ever say I was going to do anything apart from make a photo project on British Bigfoot and try and find out if it was real or not. And then it kind of got really. I was doing a few talks, and there was paid entry to put it on, and did a few podcasts and things, and basically the community got really, really angry because they really wanted their name attached to it, and the community. I think it was reported Bigfoot sighting group or the British Wildman UK kind of group, and they really, really, really wanted to be part of it, and then when it turned out they hadn't proved it, they didn't, and it kind of just switched and made me go, hang on, like, did you really think I was going to find it? Like,
yeah, they were probably very much hoping.
Yeah, hopes on me as someone who's not a scientist, who doesn't have any field experience, he's not a tracker, but knew a set of landscapes and knew that there's barely anyone up there, and knew that there had been sightings there. So I thought, right, if I'm equipped to investigate this area because I kind of know all the routes and I know what if there was something big where it would be. A few comments and things. Did Harry talk to any scientists, animal experts, and research? I forgot his name, but I spoke to an American. You probably remember who he's actually emailed me a while back. Actually, he's kind of like he's an American zoologist who's the most kind of like recognizable figure in proving the existence of Bigfoot. He's like the number one guy, and I sent him photographs of the prints. Off my camera phone, I detailed of it, and then gave him like locations of where I had been, and I gave him all the kind of information that I had been able to gather, and then he basically turned around to me and said that no, these aren't genuine, and it can't live and exist in the UK, and Bigfoot would be a migration. It would be a migration animal. So,
yeah.
And yet, if you look, I've just shared with you, Laura, the map of where these Bigfoot sightings have been claimed. Can you put that up?
Oh yeah, I'll see it.
There are literally hundreds of them. I mean, look, you can't see the map for points, and these are all the places that people are saying they've had sightings. I mean, some of them are here in the Midlands. Unless Bigfoot's about the size of an average dog, I don't see how they can hide.
And a lot, I mean, this has all been, if you do a bit of Googling, you'll kind of find the person who's behind that map, who's orchestrated all together. But she's very much like, this is her one kind of claim to kind of thing, and it's her baby. And she kind of thinks that this creature who probably isn't real is kind of hers. But then she also believes in things like the Wolfman and lots of and it's all very kind of ownership. There's a lot of in the Bigfoot community in particular. There's a lot of ownership, which kind of leads me to believe that if you kind of thought that an animal, it's like me saying I think there's a new species of shark. I've seen this. I wouldn't own it. I would kind of get people involved and collaborate. And there's a lot of kind of like I've done all this research. This is all mine. It becomes a very self-centered, and the more they share, and the more kind of there's two main people. There's a man and a woman in the UK who kind of like hold the reins in the ownership of a Bigfoot, and the more they talk about it, the more you kind of realize it's nothing to do with Bigfoot. It's to do with them. And I mean, Zach's just put in the comments saying underground dwelling. Well, there's too much of the cases in the UK that's already explored, and there is no evidence in the UK to sustain it. I mean, I spoke to a few of because there's a bit of a rivalry between the UK group and the American group. They kind of hate each other in a very hilarious way. And I think it's because one's like, you don't have it, and the UK like, yeah, we do. We definitely have Bigfoot.
Is there a possibility that it may exist in the UK, in America though? There's more possibility
There's certainly more possibility, but the more you look So I was rewatching Blackfish last night because currently where we are in Scotland, there's a pod of orcas who are swimming around the coast, and my partner's never seen Blackfish, the documentary. So let's watch that, so you might appreciate the ones in the wild a little bit more. It was talking about highly intelligent species, and you look at orcas and dolphins, and you look at chimpanzees, and you look at the great apes, mountain gorillas. They are family units. They are, in the orca world, it's matriarchal, and in some, I think dolphins are as well. But the chimps, I don't think they are, and the great apes aren't. And apart from orangutans, the great apes of the silverback mountain gorillas, they're family units, and they would have to kind of exist and coexist as a group. So you're not talking about spotting one; you would probably see a group, and over the years of them breeding, and then the young males going off to form their own groups, it would be a sizable number of animals, and they would have to, because of natural migration and animals that do hibernate. There is no ape species that can hibernate. The apes simply, and humans, Homo sapiens, we can't do it. We
don't have it.
Physically can't do it. So there's no such thing as hibernation. It's the underground dwelling of, they just go underground their entire lives. Well, actually, it'd be, even though they're hairy, they would need to come out and forage, and they'd need to move and migrate. And you've got someone like America. Yes, it's huge, but if you're then talking about groups, and let's say there's about 5 big groups of 8 to 12 families of Bigfoot in America.
Yeah.
You would have clear video evidence of them moving. You would have clear photographs, and you'd probably have some in captivity by now.
Yeah,
I know.
That's the reality.
Drones and things. I think someone on the chat mentioned drones.
There's a really good. There's actually a really good drone. There's a drone. If you type in drone Bigfoot, there is one of just conveniently had his drone out and captures a Bigfoot running, which gives you an idea, and it gives you an idea of scale as well. And to me, do you remember the kangaroo metal boots that were really popular, which were basically made which you run, and they were kind of like went on the ground like that, and they sprung. Yeah. I think it was like in the early noughties or something. They became quite popular with, and I think it kind of helped with Paralympic technology for racing. It looks like it's someone in one of those, just the movements of their what they're doing. And the more you look at, I mean, someone's just put, I'm just going off the chat here, someone's gone, they hunt, Zach saying they hunt in packs. Well, a lot of ape species, apart from chimps who've been known to hunt small monkeys out of the trees, a lot of they're omnivores, so a lot of them will forage for plants and vegetation, and will only eat meat if they kind of have to. So and then you're kind of thinking, well, what kind of? And you're thinking of how quickly a deer runs, and how far like an 8 foot to 9 foot ape man could run.
Yeah.
You're still probably not going to run as fast as a lioness, and you're still not going to probably have to run as fast as a cheetah or a feline animal pack, or a wolf, for example, just because of the height. There's a lot of kind of like obvious stuff. I mean, I'm not a scientist and zoologist, but there's kind of like obvious stuff. You look at the shape of the animal, you look at evolution, you look at what animals can hunt certain other animals, and how ecosystems are kept in balance by those all the animals being there. There's just Bigfoot would have had to, the species of them would have had to have developed tools. So early man kind of like flint tools. And if that was the case, there would be so much evidence of remnants of tools being used. I mean, if we can find evidence of early Homo sapiens and different branches of the evolution of man and the tools that they use, you'd be finding them all over America of these freshly made flint-made weapons and spears for hunting down prey that moves a lot faster than them. And if that's the case, they're evolving, then they would have made more contact with people. So the more you kind of look at it and go, well, yes, these things, they could hunt. But the more you say, well, the more you try to explain the existence of them, the more you can kind of discredit it, and it kind of outweighs itself a little bit. Of course, but they must eat meat. Yeah, I'm sure they do eat meat, but there has to be means in which they get meat.
Even early man had flint, and tools.
Exactly, and I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with wanting to believe. And there's a really good Tim Minchin quote actually, where he says, "Isn't this world enough? Like just this, like what we have in the world around us, isn't there enough to still explore it and relish and protect, rather than coming up with man-made monsters?" And I think it would be really amazing if it was real, because it would just be fascinating and incredible. But from spending time with people who've dedicated their entire lives to digging up as much evidence as is humanly possible, and they're coming up empty-handed, it makes you go, well, if people can do an expedition to the Amazon saying, "Oh, we think this type of variant species might be there because someone had a sighting," and then going in and finding it rather than like a 6-month expedition. And you've got people doing this for 30, 40 years. There's a lot that doesn't add up. And I know your group and your podcast and your video kind of chat is talking about things which are entertaining the reality of things and and exploring. But I think because Bigfoot is the gateway monster, I think he's the one which is the easiest discredited. And because there's such a pop culture, they proved that do you remember the original tracks on Everest, the classic picture with the pickaxe?
Yeah.
The footprint that got proved as being a bear print.
Okay.
So they found that there were bears going up into the mountains, and the bears that lived there. But obviously, that picture happened. Then the Patty Jenkins. It's not Patty Jenkins, is it? No. The footage of the Bigfoot. Then that came along because it was seen in the newspapers. And you kind of think, hang on, it's a lot of it is a man-made. Do you not think they have evolved? I mean, when they've been Bigfoot has been in terms of footage and video stuff, they've been, if you were to take like a handful of the most convincing videos as evidence, evolution takes hundreds if not thousands of years. Then there's nothing to
we haven't evolved.
Exactly. Our ears and our noses are getting bigger, but that's about it.
The only animal in our history that has actively evolved is the bat, isn't it? There's a species of bat that has, and birds. Birds and bats are the only ones that have actively evolved in our recorded history. And
I mean, you're getting animals which are adapting dramatically because they have to, because of climate change, but that's not evolution. That's adapting to
food.
That's adapting to your environment changing. But it's nice. It's nice. Yes, Zach. If we can evolve, they can evolve. I mean, I use the word monster just because that's how it's depicted, and it's obviously, if it's real, it's a creature, but at the moment, it very much is nestled in the myths and monsters kind of category of of reality.
Yeah.
Until it can be proven.
Though, in itself, because if the difference between monster and animal, if it's an animal, then it is an animal that needs to eat, that needs to mate, that needs to defecate. And all those three things are things that leave evidence behind. And there isn't any.
Yeah, I mean, you would have thought droppings would have been found. If they're that hairy as described, I imagine they molt. Just think of how much hair that you lose that it comes out of the shower plug hole every day. There would
there's
have been
not a furry animal on the planet that doesn't molt.
Yeah, exactly. And you would just, and there was a like I mentioned before that the chat, there was a Channel 4 doc, I think it was a 4-part, 6-part series where they were taking it seriously, and they were like, look, we're going to this scientist who was one of the world's beatings in genome sequencing and DNA. He said, send me your best evidence. And there were people who put their entire reputation in the community on the line in this documentary, and not a single shred of evidence came back as a new species. It was all deer or bear. And all of the prints, they say a lot of the prints, when you have bears that walk on their back legs, they're known to like walk in couples and then pounding onto their front and galloping. If you look at that, it could easily look like big strides, and the way
that's what you want to see,
and the way they're hitting the ground. I
mean, there is a lot more evidence over in the US than there is here. A lot more viable evidence, shall we say, in the US than there is here. But I don't think that the US community have probably done this with the DNA, and you know, they just accept it.
Yeah,
they've maybe not done so much of the scientific side of things to try and create proof.
Yeah, I mean, our team member Simon he thinks tourism is a part of it too. Small towns wanting the financial gain.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, I mean, even I drove past Loch Ness the other day, and I mean, they've already kind of suggested that sturgeon, the fish, not the politician.
It'd be better if it was the politician. That would be hilarious.
I don't think it's in Loch Ness, keeping it alive. Because if you look at how big sturgeons can get, they're incredibly large. I mean, you're talking about up to like 15 to 18 foot long.
The things nightmares are made from.
Yeah, they're absolutely massive, and they've already kind of and there's there's another lake monster literally across the water in Europe, where they've proven that there is there's sort of like a cavern that opens up into the ocean, and there's one in Loch Ness as well. So what people have now kind of believe is that these sturgeons migrate between the two lakes. And that's why you have people believing it in two locations, which would actually make sense for an animal to go back and forth. And then there have been people who've caught sturgeons in the loch before, big sturgeons. So I mean, most of it is kind of, you can explain away. I mean, the only thing I'll go in for and entertain is ghosts and paranormal stuff. That's the only thing I'll entertain.
That is my thing, the paranormal. Absolutely.
Well, then we might welcome you back.
I've had a few experiences myself that have yet to be explained, that have really freaked me out. And
have you got anything on camera?
No, but I've had a mug move, and I've had I suffer from I have two sleeping disorders. One is essentially I live out and act out my dreams physically, which makes me exhausted in the mornings. And one's where I'm extremely lucid dreaming, where I think that I'm interacting with people who aren't there. And there's been times when I have been fully conscious and seen stuff. But been freaked out, and there's been times when my mother's been laying in bed wide awake, just put her book down with her sort of her knees up and felt two hands pressed down on them. So I will entertain ghosts for a bit, but but with Bigfoot, it kind of makes me think that there's not enough credible evidence. What do you think of sightings can like Bigfoot as well as hear about it now? I think a lot of it is. I think is bears. That's what I can think of. Or when you get some really pushing the envelope on reality, when people are saying, "Can you not see that Bigfoot sat on that bush?" and they brighten it up, and there's just visible a face, and you're like, no, that's kind of a bit like when you look at clouds and you make up shapes and you see things. Like, yeah, and, I think a lot of it is bears and the casts. I don't think casts are credible. I don't think they can be used really as evidence because they can be so easily faked. So it kind of rules them out.
Yeah. I mean, there was a case where they caught in America like this loud screaming, and this guy put next to it, like you can see voice waves, and he was put like a woman screaming and put it next to this footage of this whatever it was, that Bigfoot and coyotes and different animals, and he's saying nothing matches to this sound. So he's like, so what could what is it? Because it's not an animal that we know of, and it's not a person because the waves in the sound don't match up.
Yeah,
it's interesting. It was really interesting to see and hear about.
And that is interesting, but also just to kind of be full Scully and throw it back at you, is that how many recordings do they have of recordings of an animal like in pain or distress or a mating call or how many people have detailedly studied and have
honestly, animals all sound the same. I was walking into town yesterday. There was crows going overhead, all of them going caw caw like crows do. One of them making the bizarrest noise. It was because I saw it, and I saw it was a crow, but it wasn't making a crow noise, but it was a crow.
Yeah, I mean it's, and I did speak to quite a few people who had been camping for the very first time and had experiences can't explain. And I'm like, sounds like a badger. And I'm totally honest. If you had some stuff like a hedgehog, hedgehogs make weirdest noises. Harry, if you had a chance, would you go on a Bigfoot expedition to North America? Yes, obviously. If you're paying Patrick, someone's going to.
That'd be amazing.
I love this question. This question that Simon asked just further up the chat. Do you think there's a connection between a Bigfoot creature and the stories we've heard of children who grow up feral? And if such a child were to grow up to adulthood, that would be pretty close.
There's an X-Files episode on this. I think it's series 2.
Which one it is?
It's series 2. I mean, yeah, there are stories of kids who've grown up feral, but
there can't be that many of them, surely. No,
there's not that many. And if they are, they're well recorded and documented from. I imagine they're well documented from psychologists to rehabilitate the kid into a normal society. I think Bigfoot essentially comes from trying to keep people out of the woods and safe at night. I think that's where it all comes from, because it's in every, like I mentioned before, it's from every single culture, and it's from it's so widespread that people seem to think, well, if it's so widespread, it means it's real, and there's the different species of them. But if it's kind of like people have there's so many stories throughout history which add up to a different version of people all found religion, and I mean the Aztecs would do blood sacrifices to ensure the sun would come up.
Yeah.
Again, it was the Egyptians who believed in things. Was it Ra? The
Ra was the Egyptians.
Ra?
Yeah, right, the sun god.
Sun god. So all of these kind of things before we had science and the technology and the intelligence and the know-how of not the intelligence, the know-how of the world around us. Humans of different cultures found very similar ways of navigating the world around them. And it just so happens that all of them seem to have come up with a Bigfoot.
Yeah, I mean, I actually saw something floating around on social media a few days ago, which made me chuckle. It was a picture of all the pyramids, and that you can find some in Egypt, some over in Mexico. You know, all the different pyramids all around the world. And they were going, you know, how do you explain this? All the same pyramid all over the world. And somebody just put, I think it's just the easiest way for somebody to make a pile of rocks and have it stand up. And it's true. It is the best way to make a pile of rocks and have it stand up.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of, and there's also when you look at the things like the pyramids. I sometimes find, I mean, the pyramids were essentially built by slaves, and they were built by non-Caucasian people. Just because black, brown / POC people were able to build the pyramids doesn't mean that aliens did it. I mean,
absolutely, I agree 100% with that.
Just because it blows your Caucasian, white, cis brain does not mean to think that other cultures aren't capable of doing it. I think kind of there's a lot of kind of like inbuilt racism when it comes to things that other cultures have done, and maybe the aliens did it. It's like, no, these people were relatively good.
People could actually, you know, do math.
Yeah, I mean, they did a really great documentary about how they got the stones up the Nile and how they dragged them and the mechanisms they used. Really fascinating, but when you realise it took them hundreds of years and thousands of people died to make them, not so fascinating.
It has now been proved that they weren't necessarily slaves. They found really intricate quarters that they would have lived in, and they think that because the Egyptian leaders, the pharaohs and everything, portrayed themselves as gods, that the people believed that they were gods, and so actually volunteered to give up their life. And it was actually this great big, a good thing. It was you know, something they strived to be. A pyramid builder was something that was a prestige within the family. You know, what's your son? Oh, he's building the pyramids. You know, I'm never going to see him again, and he's going to die in a desert. But woo, he's building the pyramids for the god.
Yeah. That's a nicer one to believe, isn't it? People hold against their will to lug stone about. But yeah, any more? No more questions about Bigfoot. I mean, what are the common evidence? What is the most convincing proof of evidence out there that the only bit of evidence I've seen, there is a YouTube video. It's a famous video of a family who just came down from like a mountain hike, and they're kind of like they're not at the base of the mountain. They're kind of like, they're still like 3/4 of the way up, and they're looking at the ridge. And the dad's just filming, and then they basically see this really tall person thing come down the side of the mountain, and it looks pretty convincing because the way that they're the way they're coming down on the mountain, you can tell from the side it's rocky, and the speed they're coming down and the height of them. That's the most convincing thing I've seen. Yes, you can see my website. If you go to Harry little -rose.format.com, you can see my photography. You can see the project on there.
Yeah, I will on our page. I will drop a link so you can go check out all of Harry's photos as well, which are beautiful. I mean, when it comes to cryptozoology, Harry, what would be one of the things you would love to investigate?
The one I really want to investigate is going to Roswell and going to the desert and speaking with people who can communicate with aliens and people who believe killed aliens and hunting them down, because aliens is kind of, I don't believe that aliens have influenced technology or culture. There's a really great short story. I forget who it's by, but it was played on Radio 2 a couple of years ago, where it was a conversation between two aliens observing planet Earth and deciding whether they're going to make contact. And they're watching this video that was being broadcast by Planet Earth, thinking, "Oh, the most violent kind of like primitive race." And it was a long philosophical conversation between the two aliens about why they weren't going to speak to come down to Earth. And as they fly off, Looney Tunes theme tune finishes. We'd actually just been watching Looney Tunes, and they thought that was what the human race looked like.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really clever little story. But I don't. I kind of think that aliens. I mean, obviously we're not alone, and there obviously has been a lot. There's been a lot of, especially with the Pentagon and the FBI, have been releasing footage and saying we don't know what this is. They're not saying it's aliens; they just think they don't know what it is. They don't know, and no other foreign government has come forward saying this is our technology. I mean, if it was their technology, if it was like the Russians or North Korea or China or but then would they? Because they might have got out of control. They don't want the Yankees knowing that they've got this superior. They don't want another reason for the Americans to invade another country. So,
True.
So you
need to set up a crowdfunding page to get you over to Nevada.
Yeah, that would be the dream, because again, it would focus more on the people rather than the actual thing, because it's the people that make it really, really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, my dream place to go is Skinwalker Ranch. That is amazing. So we've got the case of skinwalkers plus the UFOs as well. Loads of UFO sightings.
Well, did you watch the Danny Dyer one?
No.
It's incredible. It's obviously something to do with the light, and it's atmospheric. It's clearly like a chemical imbalance in the air or something. But he's not. It's like I think it's been taken off BBC iPlayer. It was broadcast about 15 years ago, I think. And it was Danny Dyer, I believe, Alien Hunter or something. The episode, it was a 1 hour episode, and he went to this mountain that's suspiciously like the mountain from Close Encounters.
Right.
And what was happening essentially was different coloured orbs. Quite big ones were coming out the top of the mountain, flying off and coming down, and they weren't following a pattern. They were moving about something, and then this guy was like, "This is aliens are going down into the earth. This is a thing," and it didn't really explain it. And then there was nothing online. I couldn't find anything online to rationalize what had happened, so I wasn't sure if Danny Dyer was having everyone on, or if it was just something to do with a bit like the Northern Lights kind of thing. If it was just a light. A natural light display that happens.
Maybe we'll do something on that, Laura, next time. That could be quite
interesting.
Yeah, we get Danny Dyer even better. I'll definitely be in that one.
Oh yeah. I mean, what's our next one? We're doing what is it you said we're going to do in 2 weeks?
Oh, the Beast of Bodmin Moor.
Yes, I'm looking forward to doing that one.
Some beasts.
I stayed on Bodmin Moor.
Did you see the beast?
It's too cold to see the beast.
Well,
I think our time is up.
Our time is up. We've come up to the hour. Harry, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. You've been absolutely amazing. Also, next week we have Sarah and Kerry. They're going to be talking about the Ipswich witches. Also check out Jess on TikTok. She does amazing. She's doing cryptozoology as well at the minute. And just want to say thank you. Remember, if you see us, share, subscribe. We are on TikTok, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. It's been a pleasure. And I just want to say thank you again, Harry. It's been really, really interesting hearing about your experiences. Absolutely amazing. And like I said, I am going to drop the links to Harry's page so you can see his photos as well. So I want to say thank you, everyone, for joining, and good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night. Bye.